So, Memphis traffic. Memphis traffic. Commonly asked question is, why is there oil down the side of my bike? The reason there's oil down the side of a lot of bikes is because the EPA told Harley quite a few years ago that they had to start routing the crankcase pressure or blow-by, or what's called oil carryover, back into the intake. To be recirculated through the combustion chambers. So all that pressure that's built up in the crankcase that all internal combustion engines have is now routed back into the air cleaner, and a lot of times it's very heavily saturated with oil, and it can overwhelm the filter element and then start dripping out of the air filter element and end up along the side of the bike. And the question of whether this is good for an engine or not is just ridiculous. It's oxygen depleted air. It's hot air. And it's full of oil, none of which is good for the combustion chamber. And many people know that already, so they get an external breather system. Well, an external breather system, even though it's no longer routing all that hot, oily, oxygen depleted air back into the engine, if you have very saturated blow-by with a lot of oil in it, it's got to go somewhere. And of course a catch can will keep it off the side of your bike, and different EBSs will, but a lot of people don't want to run an external breather system, or they're running the breather bolts, which don't have much of a filter at all, and they end up with oil along the side of their bike. So the question is, why do I have oil along the side of my bike? Well, it's because you have a lot of oil coming out your breather bolts. So why is there a lot of oil coming out your breather bolts? Well, there are several easy reasons that you can check, and it's easy to resolve. And the most common is that people think that the quote-unquote full mark, or the top mark on their dipstick, is where their oil level should be, when it clearly states in the manual that you do not add any oil to your engine unless the oil level is at the bottom mark or below. So if the oil is not at the bottom mark, or what people refer to as the low mark, if it's above that, the manual says don't add any oil. Only add oil if it's at the bottom mark or below. And when you add oil, only add enough oil so that the oil level comes up halfway or midway between the lower mark and the high mark. I know it's confusing because the dipstick, you would think the high mark is the full mark and where you would want it. But the manual is very clear that you do not add oil unless your oil level is at or below the bottom mark on your dipstick. And if you do add oil, only add enough oil for the level to be halfway between the low mark and the high mark. And that's it. That is the most common reason, and no matter how many thousands of times I've explained that, and as you can see, we've even copied part of the manual where it says exactly what I've just said, or very close. People just don't want to accept that, and they think that it should be at the full mark, and if it is, well, you're probably going to have problems. So that's the most common reason. Second most common reason, running the wrong kind of oil. It's not going to be an oil. Like an oil thread on a forum. Everybody, you know, any good oil is going to lubricate your engine, but if you want to reduce blow-by, again, follow the manual. And it's right here on the screen. If you ride in predominant temperatures that are predominantly over 60, 70, 80 degrees, then you should run a heavier oil. 2050 oil is not 50 weight oil when it's hot. 2050 oil is 20 weight oil that has viscosity modifiers in it. Those viscosity modifiers make the oil mimic the thickness of 50 weight oil when it gets hot, if those viscosity modifiers are not damaged from excessive heat. But again, due to our friends at the EPA, they have these engines running so hot that even though the oil, quote unquote, is not damaged, it's the additive package in it, which includes the viscosity modifiers, that start getting damaged at 230, 240 degrees. And of course, we routinely see stock engines up in the 300 plus degrees. So while the oil is still going to lubricate, I'm not saying that you're going to get bad lubrication. The additive package is being damaged, and part of that additive package is the viscosity modifiers. So when the oil is thin, it's more likely to atomize and then come out through the breathers and end up along the side of your bike. So if you want to reduce oil along the side of your bike, then run a heavier oil in warmer temperatures. And of course, the best way is to do both of those things. Run oil at the level indicated in the manual, which is midway between the bottom mark and the top mark on your dipstick, and then run a heavier oil. But then the best thing you can do, because it kills two birds with one stone, is to run an external breather system that captures the oil, whether it's with a catch can or a good filter. And then you're not going to have oil along the side of your bike. Now, if you're still having, I mean, it's not frequent, but there's some bikes that really spit a lot of oil. So much oil that even a good sized catch can is going to get full in less than 1,000 miles. Well, if you're spitting that much oil, then the probability is high that the umbrella valves need to be checked and may be malfunctioning and letting too much oil by. The umbrella valves are in the rocker covers, rocker boxes below the rocker cover, and they function to let the air through but not let as much oil through. So check out those umbrella valves. If umbrella valves are in good functioning condition, running a good oil, running a... Wow, there's police, I guess they're giving out tickets. Run a good oil, run oil at the good level. Have an external breather system. Make sure your umbrella valves are functioning properly. And if that doesn't do the trick, then it could be something even more serious. The oil pump does two things. The oil pump pumps oil through the engine, but it also scavenges or pulls oil out of the bottom of the engine. Remember, one of the ways that the twin cams are cooled is that it shoots oil at the bottom of the pistons to help cool those pistons down. And so when that oil then drops to the bottom of the pan, and this is a dry sump engine. Harleys are dry sump, not wet sump. So you don't want oil down in the bottom of the engine. It needs to be pulled out of the bottom of the engine and pushed back to the tank. But if the oil pump is not doing a good job of scavenging that oil out of the bottom of the engine, then that's where the crankcase pressure originates that comes out of the breather bolts. So if you have too much oil down there because it's not scavenging well, then you're going to end up with a lot more oil down with all that crankcase pressure, and you're going to end up with a lot more oil coming out of your breather bolts into your air cleaner if you don't have an EBS, or into your EBS system if you're running an external breather system. So if your oil pump is not scavenging well, it could be the oil pumps needs to be repaired or replaced, or it could be, in the worst case, and we've seen this more than a few times, that the crankshaft is a little bit out of round, and when that happens, then the oil pump, even a perfect oil pump, cannot scavenge well because it runs off of the crankshaft. But 99.9% of the time, it is either the oil level being overfilled, i.e. it's at the full mark, the top mark, which is overfilled. The midway mark is the highest it should be filled to, according to Harley, and they know. And it even says, we'll pop it up on the screen here, that overfilling above the midway mark may result in excessive oil carryover. That's what Harley calls blow-by, oil carryover. I think they even say it may cause damage to the engine. Not really sure how, but anyway, so 99% of the time when you see oil along the side of the bike, it's going to be solved by getting that oil level at the proper level, running the correct weight oil, straight 50, straight 60 in warmer temperatures, because it's not going to atomize as easily and come out through the breather bolts in the form of blow-by or oil carryover. And of course, the best way is to run an external breather system. That way you're going to get more power, you're going to get increased economy, you're not going to have a problem with carbon buildup on your pistons, you're not going to have stuff getting gummed up in your carburetor or your throttle body because of all that nasty oil going through there. And that's going to solve the problem of oil along the side of your bike. Hope this was helpful. We're putting a link down below to even more details and charts on this subject. If you found this useful, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.